There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. May you be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 8, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Appropriation Bill.
I will now call upon the Honorable Minister in the Presidency.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, the Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Buti Manamela, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Acting DG Tsidiso Matuna, the Statistician General Lehosha, the Chairperson, Dr. Koza, and other members of the Portfolio Committee, Commissioners of the National Planning Commission, members of the Diplomatic Corps, honorable members, distinguished guests in the gallery, delegates from Masisebenze Assessment Center from Mandela Park, Progressive Youth Alliance, Old Age Community-Based Center, ambassadors of change, students from various TVET colleges, young women, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to table this budget vote for the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. This year marks what would have been the 100th birthday of the liberation struggle icon and the longest serving president of the ANC, Oliver Reginald Tambo. As you know, His Excellency President Zuma declared 2017 as the year of O.R. Tambo in honor of this stalwart. In addition, this year in August, it will be 5 years since the National Development Plan, our Vision 2030, was adopted by this Parliament by consensus as one of our country's long-term vision and roadmap, which enjoys broad support across South African society. The budget vote presents an opportunity for us as government and the country to assess our performance in pursuit of inclusive growth and socio-economic development and to chart a way forward for the remainder of the mandate of this current administration. The budget vote also takes place in the aftermath of credit downgrades of our country by 2 prominent ratings agencies. This is a major setback in our journey towards creating a better and more prosperous South Africa. Chairperson, the centenary of O.R. Tambo demands of us to reflect on the life of this colossus of the liberation struggle and to keep in mind his vision and mission as we take a retrospective view on the road we have traversed as a nation and how we move forward. O.R. Tambo's life is intertwined with the trajectory of our liberation struggle. Tambo selflessly dedicated his life to the struggle for freedom and equality for all South Africans, regardless of color and creed. Tambo was a unifier, a sincere servant of the people with a strong conviction that true freedom and democracy could only be expressed through a better life for all. Honorable members, it remains true that South Africa is a better place to live in compared to the pre-democracy era, and the lives of the majority of our people have improved since the dawn of democracy. Our economy has grown at average 3.2% a year from 1994 to 2012. Our GDP increased in real terms from 1.6 trillion rand in 1994 to just over 3 trillion rand in 2015. Employment has grown from 9.5 million in 1994 to 16 million at the end of 2015. Access to housing and basic services has improved through the construction of 4 million new houses since 1994 and increasing connections to electricity to 95% of households and piped water to 85% of households. The social protection system has expanded to cover more than 17 million recipients, lifting millions of our people, children and old people, out of severe poverty. From 2001 to 2011, poverty has halved, and the percentage of households that experience hunger has decreased from 23.8% to 11.3%. South Africans are much healthier today and they live longer. Total life expectancy at birth has increased from 56.4 years in 2009 to 62.4 years in 2016, with Stats SA estimating it to be 67 years in 2017. We are among the leading countries to reach near universal access to basic education at 98% of 7 to 15-year-olds in our schools. Eligible TVET colleges students receive financial assistance annually has increased from 188,182 in 2012 to 235,988 in 2015. Students enrolled at university has increased from 950,000 in 2012 to 985,202 in 2015. Our challenges notwithstanding, but we recount all these indicators of progress, not to be complacent, but to draw inspiration from our achievements in our mission to build a nation inspired by the vision of Oliver Tambo. Our challenges remain daunting. We have not made the required progress in promoting inclusive growth and transforming the economy and society for the benefit of the black majority of our citizens. The economy is underperforming relative to its potential, and this impedes our ability to decisively address the trio challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. The brunt of unemployment is borne mostly by our youth, who are the majority in South African population. Ownership of the economy by black people, as measured by shareholding on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, is still minuscule. Black people are not beneficiaries of mineral resources on the ground, which are overwhelmingly owned by large, predominantly white-owned companies. As Karl Marx said, he who owns the gold writes the contract. The majority of black people still do not own the land in which they were born. Only 8 million hectares of arable land have been transferred to black people, which is only 9.8% of the 82.4 million hectares of arable land in the Republic. Beyond containing extreme poverty, the challenge is for us to reduce income inequality in order to minimize dependence on social grants and free basic infrastructure. This requires that we accelerate inclusive growth to enable more and more of our people to earn the income from direct participation in the economy and the labor market and from various forms of enterprise. This is our country's overriding priority. Honorable members, government has identified the fight against corruption as one of our key priorities. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes states that corruption weakens democratic institutions, hampers economic growth and development. Informed by the National Development Plan, we have committed ourselves to a whole of government and societal approach in the fight against corruption in both the public and private sectors. This past Sunday, we launched a discussion document as a basis for nationwide consultation towards a national anti-corruption strategy. In this regard, we will be undertaking public engagements in all provinces and with various sectors with the aim to having this strategy finalized by the end of the second quarter of this financial year. Honorable members, viewed against this background I have just outlined, it is clear that our National Development Plan is our nation's blueprint and program to build on our achievements and to decisively confront our challenges. The NDP is the overarching plan that seeks to fulfill the aspirations of the majority of South Africans and black people in particular. It underpins our developmental endeavors and informs the policies, strategies spearheaded by government. O.R. Tambo said, and I quote, "Racial discrimination, South Africa's economic power, its operation and exploitation of all the black peoples are part and parcel of the same thing." In this way, O.R. was forewarning that political freedom would be meaningless without economic freedom. Freedom must come with the full enjoyment of rights to human dignity, decent employment, education, food, shelter, equal opportunities. Radical socio-economic transformation is premised on this perspective.
Order.
And its core objective is to expedite the fundamental changes required for our people to attain true economic freedom. In this sense, the NDP is the program to advance that radical socio-economic transformation. If he were still alive, OR would be a leading advocate and supporter of the NDP as a vision and program that embodies much of what he stood for, along with other struggle icons, Madiba, Sisulu, Slovo, Kathrada, Bigo, just to name a few. The most fitting tribute that we can pay to this gallant leader is to reaffirm the relevance of the NDP and to strive for its implementation with unity of purpose and decisiveness. For this purpose, we need to be more assertively and creatively exploiting the strategic levers at the disposal of government, including the budget, legislation, procurement, licenses, transformation charters, development finance institutions, and state-owned companies. We need better coordination, coherence, and accountability. Honorable members, in this context, the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation has a key strategic role to play. As DPME, we have been entrusted with the daunting task of serving as the custodian of this noble plan, our Vision 2030, the NDP. In addition to the programs that we are undertaking, we are promoting awareness of the plan through the NDP branding campaign. We are grateful to departments and other entities that are co-branding the NDP corporate image. The more people know about the NDP, the more they'll be able to embrace its vision. The mandate of the DPME is to ensure that our government programs advance the NDP and achieve the desired outcomes and impact, and to promote improved implementation. Our departure point is that we have an overarching long-term national development plan towards which government has prioritized 14 measurable outcomes in its current medium-term strategic framework. This is the first 5-year implementation agenda for the NDP. These outcomes include quality basic education, improved health standards, reducing crime, creating jobs and infrastructure development, nation building, and social cohesion. Through our monitoring function, our task is to report to government through cabinet, which we do on a quarterly basis, as well as to report to the nation on the performance against the objectives, and to do so without fear or favor. No plan or strategy to achieve long-term socio-economic change can succeed without a mechanism to periodically measure performance and to provide critical feedback to ensure that we improve our collective efforts and results. To this end, as is tradition, at the midpoint each of administration, our government conducts a thorough assessment of performance of our plans and programs, and on this basis to chart a way forward. This exercise is led by the DPME based on the reports of government departments and drawing also on independent evidence as well as data. Preliminary findings indicate that government is implementing and monitoring too many priorities. We now need to focus on a limited set of apex priorities that will give us maximum impact for the remainder of the current electoral cycle. This emphasizes the very importance of strategic planning and the need to further institutionalize the discipline of planning and in government. These changes that the state must implement are very complex and have a long-term time frame, which requires a sound planning and effective coordination. The aim is to streamline and consolidate the overall government planning system and related legislation in order to better advance the implementation of the NDP in a very integrated manner. Another key area is the alignment of planning and budget allocations to NDP priorities across our government. Despite several reforms since 1994 to improve the resource allocation process, including the Public Finance Management Act, the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, and Budget Policy Statement, there is widely felt need to strengthen the alignment of the national budget to NDP goals and NDP targets. At its August 2016 Lekgotla, Cabinet decided that DPME with National Treasury must review government expenditure and plans prior to the start of the formal budget process to ensure that the budget receives stronger political guidance and support the priorities of government. This exercise will culminate in a budget mandate paper that the DPME will produce annually before National Treasury allocates the budget. We are currently also working on adjustments to the responsibility for spatial planning between myself and the Ministers of Rural Development and Land Reform and the Ministers of Cooperative Governance. We have agreed to reassign key functions in the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act, SPLUMA, from the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform to the Department of DPME and COCTA. Ladies and gentlemen and members, the President appointed the second National Planning Commission in September 2015 as an independent body of experts to advise on planning issues and in particular to promote the implementation of the NDP across the different sectors of South African society. The Commission took the baton from the first NPC which produced the NDP. The NPC is already adding value through thoughtful critiques of performance in the implementation of the NDP, in particular resource allocation for NDP priorities, enriching various aspects of our plan through targeted research, engaging various stakeholders outside of government to raise awareness about the NDP and to support and thus promoting the active citizenry that the NDP calls for. To achieve these reforms, DPME has been developing an overarching policy to further institutionalize planning and to frame legislation in this area. DPME, as the custodian of Operation Phakisa methodology, borrowed from Malaysia's Big Fast result. This tool is proving very helpful to government and other key role players in unlocking delivery in key areas of priority. We are undertaking Operation Phakisa in oceans economy, health, education, mining, and agricultural sectors. Since its launch by the President in July 2014 on the oceans economy, has unlocked about 7.3 billion rand in both public and private sector investment and a total of 6,952 jobs that have been created. On ICT and education has been progressive very well with deployment of devices in schools and 2,884 schools receiving mobile trolley tablets for learners, 221 special schools being connected, 125 teacher resource center connected out of 147. Progress has also been made in the development of e-content with 978 schools having received OpenView HD in this current financial year. On the primary health care facilities, of the targeted 2,823 facilities, a total of 824 have now reached an ideal cleaning status since the initiative in November of 2014. On agriculture, participants have agreed on 26 initiatives pertaining to grains, livestock, horticulture, producer support, rural development, land reform, and labor. Members, in February 2015, Cabinet approved the socio-economic impact assessment program to ensure that it's being applied to major strategies and plans in magistrates' court rules, in charters and frameworks. And this has been done in order to ensure that we avoid unintended consequences. Non-payment of suppliers negatively impacts on sustainability of small businesses and therefore on economic growth and employment creation. Thus far, DPME has ensured that it has intervened in a total of 207 cases for non-payment of valid invoices, and 327 million rand has been paid to service providers as at the end of March. On evaluation, the target of policies and programs have been targeted, about 59 of evaluations that have been targeted, covering more than 100 billion rand of government expenditure. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, DPME in this current financial year has been allocated a total budget of 923 million rand, which is expected to increase to 942 million rand and also to 996 million rand respectively over the MTF period. The department's budget for the 2017 financial year includes the transfer payment to the National Youth Development Agency. On administration, 168 million rand. On national planning coordination, 55 million rand. And on sector planning and monitoring, 52 million rand. On public sector monitoring and capacity building, 40 million rand. On frontline and citizen-based monitoring, 57 million rand. On evidence and knowledge systems, 109 million rand, including the National Income Dynamic Study, evaluation and research. On youth development, 442 million rand has been transferred to the National Youth Development Agency. The department is also currently implementing its revised organizational structure with a view to increasing the capacity to more effectively execute our mandate. We will utilize this budget very conscious of the constraints of economy as well as the fiscal environment. It is also worth mentioning that the department has obtained clean audit opinions for the previous 4 financial years. The audit for the 2016-17 financial year is underway, and we are very confident that we'll continue that track record of clean audits and good corporate governance. Madam Chairperson and honorable members, in conclusion, the challenges that we face today as South Africans are not insurmountable. They require that as compatriots we work together and work harder and accelerate the achievement of inclusive growth and socio-economic development so that we can be able to overcome unemployment, poverty, inequality in our nation. Let me conclude with the inspirational words from the poem of Ben Okri, titled "Turn on Your Light." Only free people can make a free world. Infect the world with your light. Help fulfill the golden prophecies. Press forward the human genius. Our future is greater than our past. Indeed, our future is greater than our past. Our future is the Vision 2030, the NDP. And lastly, honorable members, let me thank the President, the Deputy President, my cabinet colleagues, the Deputy Minister Manamela, the Acting DG Matuna, and all those in the Portfolio Committee for their sterling work that they do in this department. And I also want to recognize, as I've said in the beginning, all the honored guests that have been invited, and of course, my wife Bridget and Princess Sikau from the Eastern Cape. With those words, I therefore request this honorable House to support the 2017-2018 budget of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now call upon Honorable Member MB Khoza.
Honorable Minister, Planning, Performance Monitoring and Evaluation, Jeff Hadebe, Honorable Deputy Minister Bhuti Manamela, members of the committee, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, Sanbonani. Honorable Presiding Officer, in tabling this report of the Portfolio Committee responsible for overseeing the Planning, Performance Monitoring and Evaluation, the committee acknowledges the centrality of this department in ensuring that South African government keeps its promise as outlined in the National Development Plan 2030. I am very proud, honorable members, to say that this committee is very, very united. Notwithstanding our different political affiliations and ideological orientations, those are not above our country. As such, we all agreed to support this vote. The DA, nevertheless, no,
Order.
You are not there. If you are not there, it's not our problem.
Order.
The DA, however, supported it, but it advised that they were still going to consult further with their structures. And I think that should be something that is allowed. However, as a committee, all of us have agreed on this vote. Minister, admittedly, you are absolutely correct. The credit downgrade is indeed a major challenge given our low growth track. Minister, on the 4th May 2017, the committee met to consider the annual performance plan 2017-18 of this department. Let me capture the mood, the essence, the rationale and premise from which this committee deliberated on one of the most important budget votes, and that is vote 8. I may not necessarily subscribe to Milton Friedman's school of thought, but he said it's something profound, relevant to this department, and I quote, open quote, "One of the greatest mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results," close quotes. Carl Sagan then said, open quote, "Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence," close quote. Therefore, honorable members, in approving this annual performance plan 2017-2018 budget vote 8 at our subsequent meeting held yesterday, 10 May 2017, we based our opinion on evidence presented on the 4th May 2017 and the APP, as well as other critical strategic documents. However, I must say that as a committee, we acknowledge the critical importance of this department, ensuring that its strategic objectives, which it had identified for 2015-2020, are adhered to in a measurable and evidential manner. We also understood that the PME may have challenges as a relatively new department that is at the same level as other government departments. We have to be realistic. The public service and administration environment cannot be divorced from power struggles. After all, we are in a political environment. DPME makes a bold commitment in its strategic objectives 2015-2020. I'm just going to highlight those that we thought as the committee are extremely critical for our support of this budget. One is the policies, plans, and budgets of government departments and entities should be evidence-based, integrated, and aligned to the National Development Plan. This department also it says to ensure effective monitoring and evaluation and supervision of implementation of government policies and plans. It also tells us that it has to mobilize broader society and engage with this in the development and advancement of the NDP and MSTF, SF. to ensure stronger focus on outcomes of government programs and impacts on citizens, and to enhance the implementation of the National Development Plan 2030. Based on the annual performance plan of the PME 2017-18, aims to direct spending of the department consistent with its strategic objectives as already outlined, we would highly appreciate as a committee if DPME align or factor their implementation plan with the committee's 21 well-considered recommendations, Minister. In their entirety, they mean DPME should be the center of government planning, and even review of government budget should not only be left to the National Treasury, but this particular department must be involved in the review of the budget, because we've seen some of the budget cuts that are not necessarily making sense when you are thinking about our own priorities. But we can see that you can actually identify savings in other departments and make sure that they are geared towards achieving the plans as outlined by the department. Minister and honorable members, the department, in terms of our own recommendation 11.8, we are saying, open quote, the department should collaborate with Statistics South Africa more, particularly on activities undertaken in the National Planning Program, to ensure that their work complements in advancing planning and policy decisions making in the country, close quote. We would like the department to factor the progress made on the implementation of the NTP in their regular reporting to the committee. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation overall budget allocated in 2017-2018, as already said by the Minister, is 923 million, which increased significantly as compared to the previous financial years. Almost half of the PME budget is transferred to the National Youth Agency, and that is just over 441 million. We are convinced as the committee that effective oversight over the executive is not just good for South Africans, but it is also good for the department and the leadership, as well as its management in these departments. The NYDA is an excellent example of this. We visited the NYDA offices, and it is not just getting unqualified audit opinion, but the environment in the local offices that we visited in Mpumalanga and Limpopo gave us hope, given the level of professionalism that we observed. The committee message to the NYDA is that please don't retrogress, and I'm sure Honorable Member Kasim is going to be happy because he was very strong about this particular point, and Honorable Lesoma is very strong and passionate about the issues of the youth in that committee. So you see, I know my members. We are monitoring your spending patterns and the impact they are making to the young people. We hope that we shall ensure that you keep the operational budget as low as possible so that more money goes towards economically uplifting the youth of our country and growing the entrepreneurial culture amongst young people. And Honorable Deputy Minister, I'm hoping that you are going to be assisting us as you've been showing leadership in that area. And we thank you as well, Minister, for your leadership in this. An additional amount of 140 million was allocated to the department as a result of reconfiguration and restructuring of its organizational structure and its programs in order to adapt and respond effectively to the extended mandate. Due to the restructuring of the department, there are more additional programs as compared to the previous financial years. The department has 7 programs as a result of restructuring impacting on the organizational structure. The new program structure increased capacity in policy analysis, specialized sector-specific research skill, and general administration. Overall expenditure is projected to increase from 797 million in 2016-17 to 995 million by 2019-2020. There is a significant increase on the budget allocated for 2017-18 financial year in Programs 3, Public Sector Monitoring and Capacity Development, with 40 million from 29.6 million in 26-17, and Evidence and Knowledge Systems with 109 million from 33.8 million in 2016-17. We would therefore be monitoring this closely, Minister, as the department would hopefully not make capacity as an excuse in implementing their strategic objectives and APP. The number of funded posts in the department are expected and set to increase from 350 in 2016-17 to 468 in 2019-2020. Budget on compensation of employees is expected to increase as well. We are hoping that these increases, Minister, would match performance and results. Honorable Minister and members of the House, therefore, Minister, if I were to really go into the National Development Plan and you are at the cold face of it, and we understand the burden that you are carrying on your shoulders, I wanted to conclude by quoting that very National Development Plan 2030. Open quote, all our citizens read, write, converse, and value ideas and thought. We are fascinated by scientific invention and its use in the enhancement of our lives. We live the joy of speaking many of our languages. We all assist the institutions we have creatively redesigned to meet our varied needs. We reach out across communities to strengthen our resolve to live with honesty, to be set against corruption and dehumanizing actions, close quote. The Portfolio Committee approves this budget, and please don't take it personally, Minister, when we criticize the department. It's not out of malice, it's out of the love of the country, and it's because we really wanted to see this department doing much better than yesterday. We thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Khoza. I will now call upon Honorable Member S.C. Mtau.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson, in the interests of good order, the Portfolio Committee Chair has misrepresented the position of the Democratic Alliance, and I want to put the record straight. The DA did not support the budget. The DA did not support the committee report. We reserved our rights as it is our practice. You will have to wait until the consideration of the budget votes later that you will know whether we support them or we don't. The budget allocation for the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, DPME, in the 2014-15 financial year was a mere 208 million rand. In a short 3 years, that the budget has ballooned to 923 million rand, as you heard the minister say right now, for the 2017-18 financial year. A mere whisker short of the 1 billion rand target the department seems to have imposed on itself. The allocation includes, as you've heard, 442 million rand for national youth development and 54.45 million rand for national planning coordination. This is a substantial amount of money. For this reason, during a recent Portfolio Committee meeting to discuss the department's annual performance plan, the officials came under severe criticism from the Democratic Alliance. The committee expressed the view that the country was not getting value for money and questioned the need for the existence of the department. This rhymed with the sentiments previously expressed by the Democratic Alliance, as we hold the view that most of the work of the DPME could be done by line function managers in their various departments. The committee also finally acknowledged that there were overlaps and duplications between the DPME and the Department of Public Service and Administration. These overlaps will now be investigated there should be coordination, and when necessary, the overlaps must be eliminated as they are very costly. The DA has warned that the rapid expansion of the DPME smacked of empire building and would only serve to deepen the agency's crony network by opening up further undeserved opportunities for cadre deployment. This, indeed, seems to be the case. Since the minister has already referred to it, I will not go into detail about the report that I will quote from entitled Government Policy Change on the Cards. What we would really like to know as the DA is this. In that same report that he quoted, I'm quoting here, the DPME's Acting Director General, Tsidiso Matona, was reported as saying, and I quote, "The compilation of the document marked a significant policy shift for the government," close quote. The question is, what's going on here? Could this be the real reason why former Finance Ministers Nhlanhla Nene and Pravin Gordhan and former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas were so brutally purged by the President from the National Treasury? Was the ill-considered firing done to have a pliable Minister of Finance and Treasury so that the Presidency, and that is President Zuma, would have a free hand to determine budget allocations as per his presidential prerogative? Honorable Minister Hadebe, I know you to be an honorable man. This Parliament and the people of this country want to know, one, is there a state policy change or shift with regard to the budgetary process? Two, is this part of capturing the National Treasury by President Jacob Zuma? The DA wants to warn that invoking the National Development Plan to justify such a policy shift will not save South Africa from a fate worse than a downgrade to junk status by the international rating agencies. If the intention is for the President to interfere in budget allocations to suit his whims, National Treasury and this Parliament must resist any such interference to protect the economy and the people of this country. As indicated earlier, the DA remains unconvinced about the need for a Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Eliminating the DPME would go some way towards rationalizing the bloated cabinet and cutting costs. Of course, there are other departments that should also disappear. Billions of rand could be saved in this way, which leads to the question that the DA has asked before. What role does the National Planning Commission have in facilitating the implementation of NDP 2030? And the Honorable Jeff Hadebe referred to it many, many times this afternoon, to achieve the 2030 targets. There are about 13 years left before we reach the target date, and hardly any of the set goals are likely to be achieved. The country is nowhere near the target of 11 million jobs by 2030. We are nowhere near achieving the target of 5% annual economic growth. Social cohesion and nation building are floundering. What cost benefit will the country derive from the 54.5 million rand set aside for national planning coordination? Honorable members, while the DPME receives budget allocations, the department should remain lean, efficient, and productive, and deliver bang for the buck. In this regard, the department should assert its role in assisting the President to assess the performance of ministers, as the Portfolio Committee has urged. In reply to a question I asked him about the performance and delivery agreement signed by ministers and the President, Minister Hadebe replied in part to me as follows, and I quote, "There is no legal framework for performance agreements between the President and ministers. The way in which the President deals with unsatisfactory performance of his ministers is a matter between him and the ministers," close quote. In plain English, honorable members, this means that the President can do as he pleases in this regard. This was demonstrated during the recent midnight cabinet reshuffle by President Zuma. Clearly, merit and performance were not consideration in his bizarre decisions, with one or two exceptions. Such presidential recklessness is unacceptable as it seriously jeopardizes the stuttering economic growth plaguing this country. More than 9 million unemployed South Africans are poor and desperate for work. Presidential prerogatives should not be allowed to gamble with their economic lives and the future of their children. Unless this situation is meaningfully changed so that the ministers and the president can be truly held accountable, these performance agreements will remain but a sham. Honorable Chair, the DA has on previous similar occasions made the plea that the Portfolio Committee, Public Service and Administration, as well as Monitoring and Evaluation, cannot do effective oversight over the two departments. It is heartening to note that the Portfolio Committee has finally recognized that there are severe shortcomings and constraints to its oversight work due to this agreement. The DA believes the two departments should have their own dedicated portfolio committees. We urge the Speaker of this Parliament and the relevant parliamentary committee to address this plea as a matter of urgency. We believe the oversight work of members of the committee to hold the executive and their departments truly accountable is impacted negatively by this anomalous arrangement. It is absolutely critical that we appreciate the fact that what we do in this Parliament is not for the benefit of ourselves. This is for the benefit of the people of South Africa, the future of our country, and we have to make sure we do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Mutau. I will now call upon Honorable Member M.O. Mokause.
Thank you, House Chair. The EFF would like to place it on record that we do not support budget vote number 8 of Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And we had thought that after the department's presentation at the Portfolio Committee, there was an agreement that it is clear that this department should have never even created in the first place, let alone its existence for now well over 2 years to 3 as we speak. And the EFF has been telling you this, but the ANC refused to listen. When Zuma created this ministry, there was a talk of institutionalizing planning.
Order, Honorable Member. We have to respect one another in the House in order to maintain the dignity of the House. So you have to refer to the President as the President or Mr. Zuma. Honorable President or Honorable Mr. Zuma. But it's Honorable President.
House Chair, we would like to place
Order.
We would like to place it on record as the economic freedom fighters that your president do not deserve the respect from this country, even from the economic freedom fighters, because he continues to steal from the public purse. Now, if I may continue, Mr.
On a
Zuma
point of order, Chair. On a point of order. On a point of order, Chair.
Okay, there's a point of order.
Yes.
Okay, you may come in.
Oh, I'm rising on Rule 85. The member must come with a substantive motion to make an allegation that the president has stolen something. Please, she must withdraw that. Thank you.
Honorable Member, I think the Honorable Member's point of order is sustained. It is sustained. You can't come here with allegations. In terms of the rules, you've got to submit. Order, Honorable Member. Shall we maintain the dignity of the House?
Honorable
Thank you.
House Chair, you know I respect you today. I even call you an Honorable House Chair. For the purposes of this sitting, when Mr. Zuma created this ministry, there was a talk of institutionalizing planning in government to ensure coherent and integrated planning, monitoring, and evaluation. But the results have been nothing but confusion and endless planning while our people are waiting for water, houses, roads, and proper sanitation. While the department itself was as a result of ill-convinced NDP, Mr. Zuma's noise about radical socio-economic transformation has created even more confusion. Since his 2017 State of Nation address, Mr. Zuma has mentioned the words radical socio-economic transformation in almost every address everywhere. Even on matters such as condolences, Mr. Zuma says radical socio-economic condolences transformation from government. I mean, how possible is that? But there is no piece of evidence anywhere to even suggest that there is clarity of what is radical socio-economic transformation. Even if you can ask members seated there, what is radical socio-economic transformation? They won't answer you. There is no implementation plan. There is no monitoring or evaluation framework. And the question that must be asked is, where is the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation in all this? Instead, what we have is a mixture of unrelated and irrelevant functions and a clear waste of taxpayers' money. Has anyone cared to ask, what has the National Youth Development Agency and implementing agency of government has anything to do with monitoring and evaluation? They don't care to ask because they just follow the chorus their leader is singing. An agency that is supposed to be at the forefront of youth development. What does this has anything to do with planning, monitoring, and evaluation? How is this related to industrial development, to mining and beneficiation, to access to free, quality, and decolonized higher education? They don't even care to ask. They just follow their leader. And then there is the National Planning Commission. At least here, since the ANC is now moving from radical socio-economic transformation, whatever that is, Mr. Zuma, we can all acknowledge that the NDP, its short and medium goals, let alone 2030 vision, is a chapter we must close and move on as a country. And in doing so, let us also close this ministry, save South Africa's taxpayers' money, and use the money that was allocated to this department to build state capacity, employ graduate to frontline service delivery departments of Home Affairs, Post Office, administrators at hospitals and clinics. The only practical level at which planning must start is at the macroeconomic policy level. House Chair, dump the new liberal policy framework and apply more progressive socialist policy framework which emphasizes on building state capacity. It is only then that there will be implementable plan, a plan that can be monitored, and a plan that will be evaluated since there will be delivery. It is on this basis that economic freedom fighters reject this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mkwawuse. I call upon Honorable M. Hlengwa.
Thank you much, Honorable House Chairperson. I've noticed that the theme of the legendary hero of the struggle, O.R. Tambo, is all over the budget votes. But let's ask the question, is it really the legacy of O.R. Tambo to have corruption, reckless decisions and reckless plans which put this country at risk, leading to downgrades? Is it really his legacy to have a crisis such as the SASSA crisis, the collapse of the SABC, Nkandla? I mean, I really think Fanis Nuga Makwapa, you're using his name in vain in the manner in which you are behaving. I mean, I've just picked that up over the past few days and I was quite worried, Uti. I do not think that to equate his legacy to your own conduct as the ANC is actually correct. It's Nugena Makwapa. The lack of accountability, poor leadership, corruption, all those things collapse this country. So it begs the question, this department, planning, monitoring, and evaluation, you are planning what? Planning where? Planning for who? Evaluating what? Evaluating where? Evaluating who? Monitoring what? Monitoring where? Monitoring what? You are just a department in a vacuum. Kumnandi nje kuthiwa khona ungqongqoshe ne-deputy minister, but really, what are you doing? Because these things should be done by the president. On one hand, the minister, as Mr. Mutau has said, he says he does the agreements between the ministers and the president are just a special arrangement. So how do you monitor that when you don't know? How do you evaluate the effectiveness of government when you've got no information? Really, the honest question is, should this department be in existence? And the answer is an emphatic no. And with all due respect, we don't mean that the minister must now lose their jobs. I'm sure the president can redeploy you somewhere else at midnight. The NYDA will receive 441.9 million rands, and the reprioritization of the programs will result in a saving of 12.5 million rands, of course, which is a welcome move. But we maintain that the budget one is not adequate, but the inadequacy of the budget must be coupled with the fact that NYDA is existing up there as a pie in the sky, and young people on the ground still find it difficult to reach the NYDA. The issue of the geographical spread and the national footprint must be the key priority of the new board, working together with provincial governments and the municipalities to ensure that young people are able to access the NYDA. We must raise the concern that the employee costs now continue to once again escalate, as the wage bill will now stand at 153 million rands for the forthcoming year. In the final analysis, with high unemployment, sluggish economic growth, and South Africa now in junk status thanks to the recklessness of the honorable man that sits in this seat, and the increasing levels of poverty, life being a daily struggle. When we're speaking about a developmental state, but on the other hand, we are a country which is thriving on social grants. When there's contradictions between the NDP, inclusive growth, and the radical economic transformation, it begs the question, does the ANC know what it is doing? And does it really, really have a plan for South Africa? Finally, Honorable Chairperson, allow me to say this. We support the NDP, but it is absent in government plans. So what Macbeth says, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signaling nothing. The plea is, bring the NDP to life. I thank House Chairperson.
I call upon Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, our distinguished guests in the gallery. Let me start off by saying the National Freedom Party supports Budget Vote 8 presented here today. Honorable Chairperson, one of the key functions of the department, I don't know why you're shocked, sir. I really don't know why you're shocked, because in my understanding, any process or any mechanisms that you are putting in place to try and ensure that there is a high quality of service delivered to the people must be encouraged. So I don't know why you're shocked. I can understand why you're shocked, because you belong to the Democratic Alliance, and the Democratic Alliance always operated on the principle of oppressing the poorest of the poor. So any mechanism that is being put in place, to try and create a better environment for our people will not be encouraged and will not be supported by the Democratic Alliance. And that is evident by what you say and what you do.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, can you take your seat? Yes, Honorable Member.
Chairperson, we do appreciate our guests, but could you please ask them to control themselves?
Okay, thank you, Honorable Member. Okay, Honorable Members, our guests on the gallery, you are warmly welcome, but please do not participate in what is happening in the House. Please allow the honorable members to participate on your behalf. You are not even allowed to clap hands. You may smile, but do not clap hands, please. Thank you very much. You may continue, Honorable Sheikh Imam.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, I think we need to deal with this and deal with it in a very proper manner, because this is happening every time. Members of the public, this is our work. We can inject.
Okay.
We can eject anytime, it's part of the rules. But members of the public and the gallery that is in the gallery, they are not allowed to do that.
Thank you very much, Honorable
So
members.
if you can please do your ruling and do it now properly. Because otherwise we can do the same. And
Thank you
this
very
house
much,
will
Honorable
collapse.
Member.
This house will collapse.
That's exactly what I've requested from the members of the gallery. And it's for the first time they do it today. I've warned them they won't do it again. May you continue, Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable House Chair, under very difficult circumstances, having inherited a very unequal society with millions of people neglected, marginalized, and living under inhumane conditions, government faced a mammoth task and have made commendable strides in the provision of water, sanitation, electricity, housing, and other basic services. Now, Honorable Chairperson, what we must understand and appreciate that South Africa is faced with various challenges. An unequal society with limited resources, with corruption, with mismanagement, with political infighting and instability, with parties wanting to grandstand and want control and want power where they don't want to work together in the interest of the people. Under all that, and if you take the Democratic Alliance, for example, since they are talking, let me tell you, go through the Western, and I hope the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation can give us a true account of what the state of our lives of our people are in the Western Cape. Go to the rural areas, look at the clinics, look at the hospitals, look at the socio-economic conditions. Now it is this committee that can play a pivotal role and uncover what the Democratic Alliance is doing to our people and what they will do if they ever had to come into power. Exactly what Donald Trump wants to do in America is exactly what they will do even to the NHI.
Point of order, Chair. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Point of order, Chair.
Before I allow you, Honorable Mbata, members of the public in the gallery, can I plead again with you? Do not participate on what is happening in the House. Just listen and do not participate. Please, I'm pleading with you. Yes, Honorable Mbata.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I just
you.
want to ask the Honorable Member, who is he representing there?
No, that's not a point of order, Honorable Mbata. No. Honorable Sheikh Imam, you may continue.
Point of order, Chair.
Honorable House Chairperson, but I'd like the privilege of responding to my colleague. The difference is I'm representing the people. That's the difference.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, can you take your seat? Can you take your seat? Yes, Honorable Member.
Honorable Chair, I'm rising on Rule 68. Whatever that the Honorable Member has said is irrelevant. He must stick to the topic of today.
That one is not a point of order.
If he didn't make his prepare the speech, he mustn't come and mislead
That one
this
is
House.
not sustained, Honorable Member. May you continue, Honorable Sheikh Imam?
Honorable Chairperson, that's exactly what my point.
Chairperson. On a point of order, Chairperson.
Honorable Member, yes.
No,
Member.
this is very critical, and you are saying not to be listening to me, and you don't want to rule on the matter. The newly appointed chairperson of the NYDA is continuing to clapping hands up there in that gallery. So I guess you must call the bouncers to remove him from there. Please deal with this man because I'm at work here.
Honorable Member, I've spoken to the members in the gallery. Can you continue, Honorable Sheikh Imam?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. That is exactly the point I was trying to make. That the Democratic Alliance spends more time in worrying about what other parties do than exactly what they do on the service.
Honorable Sheikh, can you take your seat again?
Chairperson, I want to rise on a point of order. I really don't do this very often. But I want to support my honorable colleague. Because...
Continue, Honorable Singh.
Because right where I am seated from, there are gestures from members of the gallery. And they've been doing it for the last 10 minutes. And it's totally, totally unacceptable. And we...
Okay, thank you, Honorable Singh.
Honorable Chairperson, I need your protection. We as whips...
Honorable members, can we give him a chance, please? Honorable Singh.
We as whips in this House have a collective responsibility to ensure the decorum of this House. And if members of the gallery continue to do what they do, without the people in charge there doing anything about it, we are going to really degenerate into a market or something like that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Honorable members in the gallery, can I plead for the last time, please? Do not participate on what is happening in the House. That is a plea. Please do not do that. Honorable Sheikh Imam, you may continue with your debate.
Chairperson, on a point of order. Chairperson, even whilst you were speaking, a member of the gallery sitting there with a black outfit was doing this to the members on the floor. Now that is unacceptable.
Okay. The security, the staff will take care, will call for stability there. Continue, Honorable Sheikh.
Point of order,
Yes,
Chair.
I've spoken
Chair.
to them. They will be taking care of that.
Chair.
Can you continue, Honorable Sheikh?
No.
No, Honorable Mbata, can I plead with you,
Chair,
Honorable members?
No.
We can't,
The person,
we can't allow our highs to be dragged to this that you are doing now.
The person who's showing us fingers is an NYTA new chairperson. We can't be treated like that.
That's
He's
exactly
showing
what I'm
us-
saying, Honorable Mbata. We are going to be dealing with that. Let us continue with the debate. That will be taken care of. Thank you very much. Continue,
Honorable House
Sheikh
Chair,
Imam.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Sengwa.
No, Honorable Chair, I would like to make a request on both sides of the House, particularly on this issue of members of the public, because
No, continue, Honorable Sengwa. Honorable Sengwa, you are talking to, yes?
Chair, whenever the DA, EFF, IF people bring people to the gallery, the complaints come from the ANC. Now, and vice versa. Now, what I'm saying is, members do not aid and abet the misbehavior in the gallery, because it is you here, by actually resisting what is being said, then you aid and abet what's going on there. But you want to call yourself honorable members. I'm pleading on you, before prevailing on the gallery, prevail on members here of the House who are actually encouraging what is going on.
Thank you very much.
It's actually in this House, not upstairs.
Okay. Honorable members, can we continue with our debate?
Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable members, the protection services are attending to the members in the
Honorable
gallery, so let us
Chairperson.
continue with our debate. Yes, Honorable
Honorable
Tata.
Chairperson, can I please help? Okay. Firstly, the parliamentary staff doesn't know which person it is. Okay. Can I please assist?
Honorable
Next to
member.
the gentleman with a pink shirt, the
Honorable
lady with the
Carter,
back leaning forward.
can we allow
Honorable
the protection
Chairperson.
services to do their job,
Honorable
please?
Chairperson, if this was a member of the EFF or any other member, you would have called the bouncers and bounced them out long ago. So please, do your work, be a fair chairperson, and do not take side because they are ANC or because they are NYDA. It's the lady with the black next to the pink shirt. And we will not continue until such time.
Point
as
of
you
order.
remove.
Okay.
You must go.
Okay. Thank you so much, honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members, thank you very much. Let us allow the protection services to do their duty.
Honorable
They are
Chairperson.
doing it. Let us not interfere with that. Let us continue with our business.
Chairperson,
thank you,
we
Honorable
want to
Chair.
assist.
Yes,
It's
they are
the
doing it.
lady. It's
they
the
are
lady.
working there.
It's not the man,
They are
it's the
working.
lady.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, you may continue.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The failure of departments to report accurately on their performances, Minister, must be addressed so that we receive a true account of the performance of the department, failing which the National Development Plan will just be another dream. What we don't want, Chairperson, is to arrive in 2030 and find that we have failed to implement the NDP as a result of the failure of departments to provide credible reports timeously. We call on the department to play a greater role in consultation with all the relevant departments and structures to make a meaningful contribution in ensuring that we make progress towards our goals. Honourable Chairperson, let me also add, and while the Minister is here, One of the serious challenges we seem to face is compensation to employees. While they are very high, we don't seem to be getting the return or the value for money. So I think what is very important to ensure that money that we are spent is well spent and that we do get value for money. The National Freedom Party supports the budget vote here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh. Imam, I now call upon honorable members, please, can you behave?
Chairperson,
Can you behave, honorable members?
Chairperson, on a point of order, we have requested that those members in the gallery be removed. Nothing is happening.
But honorable member, if you agree with me, the protection services are working on that and people have been removed. What do you want?
House Chair.
Honorable Chair, order. Honorable
I'm rising on a point of order here.
On a point of order, the third Honorable Chair.
There's a hooligan there.
Okay.
A newly appointed hooligan of the
You are a hooligan
who
yourself.
continues to threaten us. And the protection services does nothing about it. If it was a member of the EFF, the bouncers would have been here. That hooligan must go. If you don't want us to go and throw him out ourselves, protection services must do their work.
Honorable Makause.
Chairperson.
Point of order, Honorable Chair.
Yes, honorable member.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think that, Chair, we should, as the House, respect at least twice you made the ruling on the same matter. And in your rulings, you were clear and unequivocal that the guests may not participate. I want to address myself, House Chair, to the issue that seems to be very perpetual and personal. That one, whatever we do as this House, we do according to rules. And also, as the House, we never command Parliamentary Protection Service. They have their own command structure. And therefore, that the demand that's coming from opposition benches, it's uncalled for, and we may not even be able, as this House, to comply with or to even consider in any manner. But however, we would then continue to appeal, House Chair, that anybody identified in the gallery to please help us to refrain. As the governing party, we are ready to unfold this debate and to beat and paste the opposition to the wall. And therefore, we don't need, we ask the people in the gallery to please observe. We shall deal with them in terms of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable members, let us say this straight. I've spoken to the members of the gallery twice. Let us see now if they continue, but the protection service are taking care of that. Yes, let us observe. They have been warned once and twice, so they haven't continued. Let us see if they do continue,
Chairperson,
so that we continue with that.
Chairperson,
can I allow the following member to come up here?
Chairperson.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, there seems to be a problem with the identification of the perpetrators. Now, it's simple. Those members that side cannot see the perpetrator.
That's not a point of order, Honourable Member.
It's a point of order, Chairperson.
It's not, Honourable
Chairperson, you've made a ruling, and we just want to assist you to identify the person.
The ruling was not that they must be taken out. I said they must refrain. That was the ruling
They are
that
still
I did.
laughing at us there, so Chairperson,
Honourable Member,
I ask you
we
to
cannot
enforce
do
your
that,
ruling and
Honourable
put them
Member.
out right now,
You
Chairperson.
cannot say, Honourable Member, a person is laughing and can be chased out of that. No, Honourable Member, let us not do that. Honourable Member, let us allow the next speaker to come to the podium so that we continue with our debate.
Chair.
Those are not point of orders, Honourable Members. They have been warned. Something is being done, so you cannot say a person is laughing, Honourable Members. That one
Chair.
cannot be taken.
Chair, just on a point of clarity, what is the difference between a point of clarity? What is the difference between protection services with the green shirts and the white shirts that can bounce anyone out? Can you tell us what's the difference?
Okay, thank you very much, Member.
Chairperson, on a point of order, I have to again stress it, that the signal or sign that was made by the guest is a threat. And in terms of powers and privileges, the Act, that is not allowed, and it is within your rights to ask her to leave.
Point of
Honourable
order,
member.
Chair. Point of
No,
order, Chair.
honourable members, let us not degenerate
Chair.
the House to that point.
Chair.
It cannot be.
Point of
honourable members.
order.
Yes, honourable member.
Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair.
Yes, member.
I've seen the person who's indicating those people there. He made that very, sign to say he will kill you. The honorable member who's on the left-hand side of Honorable Force, he was doing this to those people up there. I saw him. So now you want those people to go out. Why? Why do you want them to go out? Because they are the ones who are starting these things here. Yes, I saw you. Yes, I saw you.
Okay, honourable members, can we put this clearly?
Honourable Chair.
Honourable members.
On a point of order.
Point of order,
On a point
Yes,
of order.
I see
Chair,
on the point
I
of
warned
orders,
you
honourable
and
members.
you didn't want it to listen.
No.
I've warned
haven't
you.
recognized you, honourable member.
continuously not wanting to
I
protect
haven't
us as
recognized you,
women.
honourable member.
I'm
Hey,
so
sit down. You have not
disappointed
been
in you
recognized,
for
Rana.
not protecting women that are being showed sight
You have
here
not
by
been
those men.
recognized.
Thank
Sit
you so
down,
much,
you have not
honourable
been
members.
recognized.
Honourable
You
Khatebe.
doing that.
Sit down.
That
You
woman
have
must
not been
go.
recognized.
That woman
Honourable
must
Khatebe.
go.
Honourable
must go
Chairperson.
too.
Honourable Chairperson, I'm rising on Rule 92.11. I'm rising on Rule 92.11, which states that once you have taken a decision, if anyone has got a gripe about that, it must take it to an appropriate structure. It cannot be resolved here. So I request you to order us to pass and move forward with this debate.
I've
Thank
already
you.
done that, honourable member. I've already done that. That is why you said they are taking care of that. If not, honourable members, let me call upon Honourable Deputy Minister, Honourable Buti Manamela. And can I... Okay, before Honourable Buti Manamela proceeds, honourable members, 1 minute will be added to him that was left by Honourable Minister. So you have got 11 minutes, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Honourable House Chairperson, Minister in the Presidency, Mr. Jeff Khadebe, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honourable Members, friends, comrades, fellow countrymen, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is quite unfortunate, Honourable Hlengwa, that you are nauseated by the fact that we're dedicating our budget speeches to the memory and spirit of Oliver Tambo. And we'll continue to do so. But I must emphasize that as long as you come here and speak on behalf of the political party that you speak for, you have no ounce of currency to lecture any of us on this side of the House on when and how we should commemorate and remember Oliver Tambo. Your political party worked since its inception to reverse all the struggles that Oliver Tambo represented and what he stood for. You can only do that if you rise from this side of the House and when you have really and truly understood
Yes,
who Oliver Reginald Tambo
Chairperson,
is.
I rise on a point of order.
Yes, honourable member.
The Honourable Deputy Minister has made a categoric statement that the political party to Honourable Hlengwa belongs to has reversed all whatever Honourable R. Tambo. Now that is misleading in the first instance, and he must substantiate that statement if he wants to make such statements. Thank you.
Okay, Honourable Singh, thank you very much for raising that, but I think it was just a matter of debate that the Honourable Deputy Minister is raising. You can come up and debate whenever you get the chance. So really, we cannot suffocate the debate just because of that. Thank you very much. You may continue, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you. Last week, the nation was shocked as we had the gruesome details surrounding the death of Karabo Mokoena, a young woman from Gauteng who succumbed to death allegedly at the hands of her boyfriend. Since then, bodies of Bonge Kapungula and Poppy Kwabe were found dumped in a bush, raped, and shot dead. Just last weekend, radio personality and actor Mandla Tlachwayo was shot dead as he was reportedly trying to protect young women from being robbed. Today in Johannesburg Magistrate Court, 11 men will appear in connection with the rape and kidnapping of a 22-year-old pregnant woman. I dedicate this budget vote speech to these and many others whose stories remain untold and who many die in silence. These are stories that puts me as a young man and leader amongst the youth to shame and anger. It makes me angry that young women in our society are no longer safe and have to look at all times behind their shoulders with fear of rape, robbery, or death looming amongst them. There are thousands of young women who suffer in silence, afraid to reach out to a society that should be protecting them. As a leader amongst young people, I wish to unequivocally proclaim today that real men do not beat up women. Real men respect women. And I encourage young men to stand up and be men of integrity and courage, to stand up and proclaim that enough is enough, and to stand up and demand an end to the senseless and violent onslaught against our mothers and sisters. We young men should root out the trash amongst us, for they shame us. Words alone will not instill fear in the hearts and minds of vampires roaming our streets, waiting to be prey on unsuspecting women, but solid and firm action from our communities will, as we say, enough is enough, and united we stand. Our government is working tirelessly to confront head-on the challenges that face our youth in general and young women in particular. The Deputy President launched the She Conquers campaign last year. The campaign is about decreasing new HIV infections in girls and young women, decreasing teenage pregnancies, keeping girls in school till matric, decreasing gender-based violence, and increasing economic opportunities of young people. Honorable House Chair, there is increasing attention placed on the plight of young people at a global and continental and national level. In December 2016, the Secretary General of the United Nations reminded the member nations that the United Nations must empower young people, increase their participation in society, and their access to education, training, and jobs. The AU's theme for 2017 of harnessing the demographic dividend through investments in youth calls upon its member states to make the necessary investments in youth in order to take advantage of the demographic dividend that Africa's youth population presents. As the department responsible for the coordination of youth development across government, we are well placed to ensure that government's youth development approach aligns with the priorities of the National Development Plan 2030 and the National Youth Policy 2020. The Presidential Youth Working Group task team of deputy ministers appointed by the President in 2014 continues to place youth development at the apex of government's overall agenda and frequently reports to the President and Cabinet on its work. One of the key programs that the task team championed was the revision of preferential procurement regulations, commonly known as set-asides. This will increase access to government procurement by requiring that 30% be subcontracted to support small businesses, young people, women, and people with disabilities. I would like to call upon big business and established business to also open their doors and follow suit and do business with young entrepreneurs. Drugs and substance abuse have caused much pain in our society and families. And through the National Drug Master Plan evaluation, we have concluded that the real size and scope of the substance abuse problem in South Africa remains unknown and is insufficiently researched. We're working with the Department of Social Development as well as other key departments in the social cluster and social partners to enhance the effectiveness of our intervention. We will continue to vigilantly monitor the implementation of these interventions. The DPME has now established in its structure a youth branch, and this will ensure that we have the capacity to effectively perform our role of coordinating youth development in the country and ensuring maximum impact. We will table the National Youth Development Agency Amendment Bill before Parliament in this financial year. We'll also be consulting with stakeholders with regards to these amendments. Along with this, we've also initiated the process of developing a national monitoring and evaluation framework for the National Youth Policy. The framework will ensure effective monitoring and evaluation of high-impact prioritized interventions for the National Youth Policy 2020. The President has recently announced the names of the incoming board members of the National Youth Development Agency, and we congratulate them, and the chair and the deputy chair are amongst us. As the key implementing agency of youth development in the country, the NYDA has been allocated a budget of 430 million. They will primarily focus on youth entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship and national youth service. Young people have demanded more access to the NYDA services. And although this is not enough, the NYDA will, in the next 2 years, be opening new branches in Ekurhuleni, in Richards Bay, in OR Tambo region, in the Eastern Cape, and also in Newcastle, in KZN, which shall extend its services to more and more young people. Further, the NYDA has positively responded to the call of young people and have equipped all its offices with free Wi-Fi services. In the 2016-17 financial year, the NYDA provided over 400 young people with full scholarships through the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Fund, and this particular fund will continue. And a further 500 young people have been provided with the necessary technical skills. The NYDA will also spend 46 million in 2017-18 to support the National Youth Service Program. A reconfigured National Youth Service unit will develop norms and standards for this particular National Youth Service. Our citizens deserve decent, good quality and timely service, and the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation's frontline service delivery monitoring assesses the quality of government services rendered to the public. Many have come here to say that this particular service should be established within line function department. But all the time, we hear how members of parliament and society in general bemoaning the fact that departments cannot supervise, monitor, and evaluate themselves. And such is the role that the FSDM is playing in our department. And similarly, the voices of citizens are critical to our monitoring approach, and therefore, in this year, we will be conducting 199 frontline monitoring visits, 400 visits in order to ensure that we as government improve the services that are provided to our citizens. By locating this in the presidency, this has empowered citizens to be able to actively ensure that they monitor the services provided and contact the presidency directly if they are unhappy with whatever service. It strengthens the role of existing participatory forums, including community policing forums, clinics, committees, ward committees, and so forth and so forth. And many of the members who came to speak here would, of course, not know if they have not given themselves the time and opportunity to look at the impact that has been done by frontline service monitoring and evaluation. We are playing and will continue to play a strong coordinating role in directing youth development, ensuring that youth priorities are adequately met, monitoring services and developing evidence-based policies and programs that advance the youth development agenda. Together, we must safeguard community assets and build responsive and caring services for all our citizens. To the young women, in conclusion, I leave you with the words of the beautiful and strong Maya Angelou, who said, and I quote, "Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. And into daybreak, that's wondrously clear, I rise, I rise, I rise." I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. I now call upon Honorable D. Carter.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the department essentially obtains its mandate from our 20-year-old constitution, a constitution which the Zuma administration has been trampling on. But it provides that the President exercises executive authority together with other members of Cabinet by, number one, implementing legislation, developing and implementing national policy, coordinating the functions of state departments and administrations. The DPM department has its vision to improve government outcomes and impact on society, and Its mission is to facilitate, influence, support effective planning, monitoring and evaluation of government programs aimed at improving service delivery, outcomes, and impact on society. Now, the NDP is supposedly South Africa's primary strategic plan. The NDP envisages, amongst others, a growing economy which reduces poverty, inequality, and unemployment, improved healthcare services, improved education and training, a reduction in corruption, social cohesion and nation building, the development of a capable state. But under the Mr. Zuma administration, the economic gains enjoyed during the Mandela and Mbeki eras has been reversed. I've got to ask the question, if this department or this ministry actually did its work, why did the SASSA debacle ever happen? Poverty, inequality, and unemployment are increasing, and the president's irrationality has ensured our junk status. Our healthcare services are failing, as evidenced in the Isidimeni tragedy. I can take you to KwaZulu-Natal, to Mpumalanga, to Limpopo, where not even a basic N95 mask is available for infection control. Our primary education system produces illiterate and innumerated matriculants, and our universities and students face unprecedented crisis. Corruption is so rife that we face the prospect of a captured state and the theft of our sovereignty. To cling to power and hide their failures, the ANC is intent on dividing our nation by driving a racially divisive campaign. Our failings and incapable state is headed by an illegitimate and corrupted president who acts irrationally. Clearly then, the department is failing to achieve its vision
point of order,
and mission.
Chairperson.
On a point of order.
To improve government outcomes.
On a point of order.
Positive
Take your seat,
impact
Honourable
on
Kata.
society.
On a point of order.
Yes, Honorable Khadebe.
The honorable member there has just cast aspersions on the president that is corrupted without putting a substantive motion. Can she withdraw that, please? Because we don't have that here.
Honorable Kata, you know that you cannot say an honorable member of the House is corrupt. That is unparliamentary. That one you know very well, honorable member.
Well, Chairperson, on a point of order.
I'm still on this one, honorable member. Honorable Kata.
Well, hashtag 783.
Honorable Kata, can you withdraw the unparliamentary
I can
utterances that
unfortunately
you've
not
done?
withdraw that. The president of this country has
Honourable-
broken his oath of office. The president of this country is corrupt. I will
Honourable
not
Kata,
withdraw that point.
You know
In fact, I will say hashtag 783.
Honorable Kata.
CR17.
Honorable Kata, you know very much your utterances are unparliamentary. They've been ruled upon. You cannot come here and repeat the same thing.
I'm not prepared
pleading
to
you, can you
withdraw that.
withdraw those words, Honorable
I
Kata?
cannot withdraw the words.
Unfortunately, Honorable Kata, you may not even continue to debate on that note
That's
if you
fine.
cannot withdraw
Thank you.
those words.
Thank you. I will leave the president. I remain with my point.
Okay,
He's
Honorable
corrupt.
Kata, you may even leave the House. Thank you very much. Yes, he must. I'm talking to the member of the House, Honorable Kata. Thank you very much for that. Can I call upon Honorable Moshwe to ascend the podium?
House Chairperson, honorable members, the ACDP is very concerned that at the rate government is going, the noble plans and goals set for 2030 in the National Development Plan will not be realized. Many small businesses are suffocating and collapsing, mainly due to excessive red tape and non-payment of service providers by government departments within the stipulated 30-day period. Failure to pay service providers timelessly has caused a lot of pain and stress and frustration for suppliers who have resultantly failed to meet their own financial obligations. Many of those who took loans from banks could not service their debts and were therefore blacklisted. Those who bought cars and buses had them repossessed because their installments could not be paid. The executive statement made by Minister Jeff Radebe regarding the payment of service providers by government within 30 days to the National Assembly in November last year came as a welcome relief to many government service providers. The ACDP acknowledges that there has been some improvements in the payment of invoices since Cabinet decided to tackle the problem of late payment to suppliers by establishing a special unit in the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to tackle this serious problem. Even though the ACDP welcomes the improvements, we are nevertheless still concerned about what Minister Radebe said was a lack of sense of urgency amongst officials in expediting payment of invoices and lack of consequences. The minister continued to state that non-adherence to the payment of invoices constitute financial misconduct, and the ACDP agrees with him about that. What puzzled me, though, was to hear the Honourable Minister say that departments seem to be reluctant to enforce this requirement without giving a solution of what to do to such departments. He insisted that disciplinary action must be taken against officials that contravene the legislation or undermine systems of internal control. The relevant question that we should ask is, if departments are reluctant to charge responsible officials for financial misconduct, then who must do it? The ACDP believes and strongly recommends that the department, this very department of planning, monitoring, and evaluation, should take on that responsibility of charging officials who commit financial misconduct by failing to pay service providers timelessly. Failing to do so will leave many businesses vulnerable to abuse and stifled growth, and government's NDP goals for 2010 will remain a pipe dream. Many of us see our relatives standing by the roadsides, looking for jobs, and those that have to be helped are stealing from those who really need the jobs, those poor people. And we want government to really, particularly this department, to ensure that all officials who are found with their hands in the cookie jar, that they be taught a lesson, that they cannot be allowed to steal from the poor when the poor are expecting help from government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Moshe. Honorable Nevout Tuchen.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honourable Members, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans. As informed by the Freedom Charter and the Constitution, the ANC has succeeded in building a nation which recognizes the freedoms, equality and rights of all, regardless of race, colour, religion or gender. Our achievement of democracy in 1994 has afforded us the opportunity to set up government based on the will of the people, people-centered and people-driven principles, and also to pursue economic growth, development and redistribution so as to achieve a better life for all South Africans. 23 years later, South Africa is indeed a very different country, instilled with the values of equality and freedom, which are at the heart of our democracy. As the ANC, we have identified the challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment as the enemies of our freedom, and we are committed to improve on the 5 national priorities: education, health, the fight against crime, rural development, and land reform, as identified in our election manifesto. To achieve this, we need to increase the speed and quality of basic services to society. We have to meet and exceed our targets for the provision of these basic services. Our strategy and tactics document of 2007 articulates that in order to achieve this, we need to build a developmental and capable state to promote our socio-economic agenda through the employment of professionals, investment in skills that is required by our economy, including absorbing young people, women, and people with disabilities into our economic activities. It also states that we need a state that has the ability to translate broad objectives into programs and projects and to ensure the implementation thereof. This was reaffirmed at our 53rd conference in Mangaung, together with the National Development Plan, the NDP. Yes, and the NDP in particular highlights the importance of building a state that is capable of playing a developmental and transformative role, which requires collaboration between all sections of society and effective leadership by government. It clearly identifies that an unevenness in capacity leads to uneven performance at local, provincial, and national government. Factors such as tensions in the political administrative interface, instability of the administrative leadership, skills deficits, the erosion of accountability and authority, poor organizational design, and low staff morale has forced government to address these outcomes and impacts through evidence-based planning and policies. The NDP was then translated into the medium-term strategic framework for the period of 2014 to 2019, which is a 5-year building block to achieve the NDP Vision 2030. With this in mind, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation was established to give effect to institutionalize long-term planning within the state in order to speed up effective implementation of ANC projects and programs and ultimately speed up service delivery. Chairperson, we appreciate that as the ANC-led government, we have a clear strategy to drive the public service to higher productivity. DPME plays a direct guiding role in government's long-term planning, strategic planning, and annual performance planning. This role requires providing evidence-based input on cross-cutting issues that have long-term implications for development. The DPME introduced the outcomes approach to detailed planning, implementation and monitoring and evaluation, promote monitoring and evaluation in government, monitor the performance of individual national and provincial departments and municipalities, and monitor frontline service delivery. Progress has been made in implementing the outcomes approach through the medium-term strategic framework 2014-2019, such as quality basic education, universal access to basic education. 98.8% of 7 to 15-year-olds are attending educational institutions. Higher education, number of students enrolled in public higher education studies at university has increased from 950,000 in 2012 to 985,212 in 2015. Health, total life expectancy at birth has increased from, as the Minister says, 61.2 years in 2012 to 63.3 years in 2015. Child health has improved with under 5 mortality decreasing from 41 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2012 to 37 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2015. Human settlements. From 2014 to 2016, access to housing has improved. About 226,459 households in informal settlements have been upgraded. 176,423 title deeds have been transferred to homeowners, thereby reducing the previous backlog of 820,000. On social protection, about 16,853,828 beneficiaries have access to social grants, which is 91% of eligible beneficiaries. Basic service delivery has improved. Since 2014, that's electricity, access to refuse removal, access to water, and access to sanitation. So all of these have improved for households. The committee recommends that the department should intensify monitoring activities on the frontline service delivery monitoring and citizen-based monitoring through tangible reporting as a way of improving efficiency of service delivery in government facilities. The presidential hotline is also a way that citizens can contribute to monitoring service delivery. The intention of the hotline is also to contribute to a more accessible and responsive government. Chairperson, unfortunately, the silo approach to planning, budgeting, monitoring, and reporting, a lack of accountability for poor performance, weak monitoring and reporting on performance information, unrealistic target setting, and poor quality of performance information are some examples that remain challenging. It is imperative that we accelerate progress from the remainder of this term, the period 2017 to 2019, and act with greater sense of urgency. We must improve focus and deploy resources to priority areas of high impact. There must be accountability for poor performance. We must review the macro organization of the state to reduce mandate overlaps and improve efficiency, effectiveness, and coordination. We must accelerate professionalism of the public sector and develop skill set to achieve the priorities of the developmental state. The committee has also recommended that the department should conduct an evaluation of the high turnover of the heads of department in the public service, including in municipalities, as this impacts on the performance of government. The department must ensure that stability of the heads of department is in line with the stability of leadership. The new public regulations of 2016 clearly defines the roles and responsibilities of the accounting officers and the executive authority. It is also important to note that performance data is crucial in assessing government's delivery of service. The DPME must work closely together with Statistics South Africa to ensure the quality of data for planning, monitoring, and evaluation, as well as reporting, is credible. Without good plans, implementation will not happen. The state needs to play a leading role and use the levers at its disposal to accelerate change. We have it in our own means to achieve the socio-economic transformation we are seeking. The ANC supports this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Drachen. My apology in terms of the pronunciation. I will now call upon the Honorable Member Honorable Member Y. Kasim.
Honorable Chairperson, before I begin, to the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Khoza, I must appreciate that under your leadership, the committee has produced a fair, critical and constructive report on this budget vote 8, which contained many excellent recommendations, and I found it appropriate to recognize that. Nevertheless, Honorable Chairperson, the National Youth Development Agency remains exactly what it has been created to be: an employment agency and a means to dispense patronage for the elite within the African National Congress Youth League and its alliance partners. It represents everything you need to know about the ANC of today: a proud liberation movement reduced to the struggle between factions for the control of bloated bureaucracies so as to be the arbiters of dispensing patronage. As I warned this House before, the flawed NYDA board appointment process serviced exactly these ends. And lo and behold, everything I warned was confirmed by your own alliance partners, the Young Communist League, whose Secretary Mluleki Dlalanga reckons, and I quote, "The Young Communist League South Africa's conclusion is that the President, based on the appointment of this board, took the decision under factional lines." And he goes on to say that if you behave in a factional way, you're factional. You can't argue with that logic. Mr. Dlalanga continues to begrudge, and again I quote, "We went further and checked who these new candidates are. We found out that the new chairperson," we've had the honor of his presence here today, "with due respect to him, is just a mere guy with a driver's license, matric certificate, and a pawn being used in factional politics." These are from your own alliance partners. And these are hardly shocking revelations, as I detailed all of this and more to this House before. But please recognize, Honorable Deputy Minister, that when you appoint people on this basis, as your party does, this is the type of arrogant and embarrassing people who have embarrassed you here today that you produce. How much longer are you going to defend the indefensible, including you, the Honorable Sheikh Imam, even if you are looking for a job? Please know that 1 in every 2 young people are unemployed. Over 15 million young people will be entering the job market over the next decade. When are you going to stop defending this absurdity? The futures of an entire generation is being stolen, and this is your answer. The crisis facing my generation will never be solved by the NYDA-type approach. Besides all of the above, its programs are small and piecemeal, and the veracity of its success is unverifiable. Despite a resolution by the Portfolio Committee in February for a detailed breakdown of its beneficiaries and their success rates, none was provided. Another deadline was given for Friday last week, a deadline that wasn't met. With a proposed 432.8 million rand to be transferred to this public entity, most of it is to be used for staffing and operational costs. 135 million rand for employee costs, 35% of the budget. 8.5 million rand to train its own employees, 8.8 million rand for monitoring and evaluation, 11.8 million rand for inventory, 8.4 million rand for its lease, 17 million rand for travel and subsistence to get people like Sviso Matsweni here today, 35 million rand for its own ICT, all amounting to over 52% of its budget not being used to assist young people.
Round up.
Either you streamline government towards killing young people, supporting young entrepreneurs and creating the environment for job creation, or you create bloated bureaucracies like these and others for factions to fight over and use for the benefit of the winning faction. You cannot do both. A DA-led national government will scrap these and other entities and departments which exist only to dispense patronage, and we will instead streamline governments towards ensuring that opportunities for young people are offered comprehensively and directly so as to address the greatest crisis facing our generation.
Member, your
Thank
time
you very
is
much,
up.
Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member Kasim. Honorable members, just to make you aware that the 2 minutes from Honorable Member Khoza will be added to Honorable Member Lesuma. So he will have 12 minutes. She will have 12 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Minister Pungane, DM Putimanamela, DM family, honorable members, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans, it gives us a pleasure to stand before you in support of Budget 8 from the oversight perspective and in ensuring that departments, they do and add value and deliver on their commitments, and they do add value in service delivery in bettering our citizens. But Honorable Chairperson, fellow South Africans, let me just deal with the side issues first. It will assist my debate. DA, I think it is and have been an ongoing concern since 2014 that you do have a problem with DPME. But also on the same, both sides of your mouth, also you say you also support the NDP. How on earth are we going to monitor, evaluate, assess if we don't have a dedicated committee, department? I won't waste my time in those ones who have never attended the portfolio committee. The question that was raised by those that you would like to know, what kind of the country that doesn't monitor, evaluate, and and monitor and evaluate for better? So you must attend the portfolio committees, will be more empowered. I must just also quickly just deal with this one, which is a by issue as well. Honorable IFP member, I will urge you, Zinuga Makopa in relation to mayoral issues, the mess that you have created at Jozini. Musa ukubheka amakhelelo aqala kuwena uzibheka ukuthi uhamba kanjani. May I just appreciate the NFP one? But with the COP, I must say that
House Chairperson.
Order, honorable members. Honorable member, you are on the...
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo. Bengicela ukuxosha nje ukuthi ilungu elihloniphekile leli ngawuthatha nombuzo omncane nje.
Honorable member, will you take the question?
Definitely no.
The honorable member won't take the question.
With the COP, honorable member that have walked out to go to other freelancing debates, I don't know what she was talking about, so I won't deal with that one. Let me just quickly also deal with Honorable Kasim. Ibhasi belikhona estopini lama, ibhasi lahamba likshiyile NYDA board is here to stay.
Chairperson.
On a point of order, you may come in.
On Rule 68, Chairperson, on irrelevance, we are on a budget speech and the member is not talking to the budget. So she's irrelevant to what she's saying. Can you please rule on that?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable member, if I may just rule on this one. Indeed, Honorable member, the member is responding to issues that were raised during the debate. So you may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The issue of detailed information or report on beneficiaries and also private business partnership, it has been circulated today. It is, unfortunately, if you haven't seen the email. Let me continue with my speech, Chair. As we celebrate the life of outstanding leader, President Oliver Tambo, Reginald Tambo, under the theme, the year of Oliver Tambo, building unity. In celebrating this, his good-lived life, thus it is befitting to quote, open quote, a nation that does not take care of its youth has no future and does not deserve one, close quote. Young South Africans, such as Solomon Mahlangu, Anton Lambert, Ashley Krill, and others, might have been motivated by burning desire for social justice, but they did also realize that to contend with the apartheid system, you had to have education and skills. Social political rights may have been achieved, but for the youth of the struggle continues, not against apartheid state, but against HIV and AIDS, alcohol and drug addiction and crime, job opportunities for free, affordable education and radical economic freedom. Similar to many developing countries, Honorable Chair, fellow South Africans, South Africa has a large population of youth between 14 and 35, representing 42% of the total population. Given the youthful nature of South African population, many of our socio-economic challenges faced by the nation, such as poverty, inequality, joblessness, and poor health, are borne by the youth. The ANC and the led government headed the call by Oliver Tambo and developed a structured and coordinated responses to address these challenges by creating optimal youth machinery. Successive ANC conferences resolved, among others, just to mention a few, to establish the National Youth Policy in 2000 as alluded by Honorable D.M. Manamela, to establish the National Youth Service and the Integrated Youth Development Strategy and much more. All these have been demonstrated and a demonstration for the ANC quest to find a results-oriented youth framework. 2017, year of Oliver Tambo. Building unity, we are proud to report to fellow South Africans that the National Youth Development Agency in the last 3 years has turned the corner for better, having received an award from the AG. Let me remind fellow South Africans and the House at large that prior to 1994, there were no government institutions focusing on youth development in this country. It was only after the ANC has voted into government that the youth development became an apex priority for the state. Thank you, fellow South Africans, for voting for the ANC. Yebo, akukho soka elingenasici, kodwa iqiniso elingakaphikwa. NYDA has made us proud. The ANC's strategy and tactics of 2007 states that our strategies for social transformation must seek to empower people to lift themselves out of poverty while creating adequate social nets to protect the most vulnerable in our society. The ANC 53rd resolutions of 2012 resolved to ensure that our programs and policies should focus on developing skills that are acquired by the economy so that the youth can become part of the mainstream of the economy. The ANC called for government to act to improve the quality of active labor market policies and create incentives for absorbing young, employing youth so that young and unskilled job seekers can gain entry to the employment space. The expansion of training linking the skills development with the industrial growth and job creation and expanding support of youth, especially black youth, in assessing and developing skills is critical to the ANC's objectives of the youth development and fighting youth unemployment. Honorable House Chair and fellow South Africans, the ANC has planned to, on tackling youth unemployment is also outlined in 2014 election manifesto, the manifesto that allows the plans to ensure a more empowered, educated youth. Just quickly also, Chairperson, because the budget vote debate is also a tool or a vehicle that to ensure that we give account what this ANC-led government has been able to achieve. My main focus, as you have been listening, is the NYDA in particular. According to the NYDA's 2015-2016 financial year, 622 youth-owned enterprises received grant funding from the agency. Of the 622 grants beneficiaries, 396 were for enterprises, 175 for individual, and 51 for cooperatives. 63,042 young and aspiring established entrepreneurs have been supported by or through the NYDA Business Development Support Services. The relationship with the Prime Stars led to achieve and exceeding the annual target. The internship development program interventions, awareness raising, technical training, and Prime Stars contributed 82% towards the achievement of this target. 3,672 jobs have been created and sustained through grant funding, which we also witnessed during our oversight the last 3 weeks when we're doing our oversight as a committee. Even the portfolio committee chair appreciated on our behalf what we observed. The jobs sustained through the voucher program constitute the largest contribution of 54% towards the achievement of annual target. Fellow South Africans, 406 youth have been supported through the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Program to empower and skill the young people. 2,080 of young people are participating in structured youth building programs. 40,000 plus 14,907 young people enrolled in National Youth Service, NYS volunteer program. 61,392 figures are not only coming from the department, but they are also captured by the Stats SA, so figures don't lie. Young people are building supported through the life skills, job preparedness and job placement programs. 5,775 young people have accessed programs and interventions designed to improve health and well-being, Gauteng well-being. i.e., Gauteng had the highest number of interventions, which contributed 40% towards the attainment of the target, while Mpumalanga, specifically as well, had the lowest number of interventions, and we have stressed this point that we must balance in terms of the beneficiaries of young people from the NYDA programs. So that's what the NYDA has done. Who else can say that they don't know what the NYDA does, unless you are not living in South Africa? The establishment of the Presidential Youth Working Group by the Honorable President Jacob Zuma is one of the ways in which government prioritizes and oversees the implementation of all legislations, programs, and policies aimed at youth development, such as the NYP 2020 and the Youth Employment Plan. Hence, the importance of the DPME also to ensure that it also developed targeted youth programs that are measurable, that also we could be able as the portfolio committee to measure on in terms of their predetermined objectives, as it were. The above give testimony that the ANC has taken the needs, interests, and aspirations of the young people to heart and into action. Honorable President Jacob Zuma has placed the task of youth development in his office and has made its responsibility of each and every national, provincial, and local government departments and all state agencies to put youth development at the center of their work. Resolving the problem of youth unemployment must be done in tandem with the national initiative of transforming the economy into a labor-absorbing economy. Most of what has been noted has happened and has been articulated within the NDP. We are responding to the NDP. Fellow South Africans, the ANC support vote 8. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member Lisuma. Honorable members, I will now call upon the Honorable Minister in the Presidency, Honorable Jeff Hadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. It is very shocking that some honorable members from the benches of the opposition parties can abuse the trust of those who elected them into parliament. On the one side of their mouth, they claim to support the National Development Plan, and on the other side of their mouth, they don't support the implementation of the National Development Plan. Let me remind them that this Parliament in 2012 endorsed the National Development Plan. In 2014, this Parliament also supported the medium-term strategic framework. This medium-term strategic framework is the first-year program to implement the National Development Plan. Let me remind them, because it's clear that they have not read these documents. The medium-term strategic framework has 14 outcomes. I'll give you a copy again, that range from basic education, health, infrastructure, social protection, amongst others. It is very clear also from the inputs that have been made by members of the opposition parties that even the inputs that many ministers and departments come to Parliament on a continuous basis, giving progress of what is happening in implementing the National Development Plan. Every quarter, DPME even posts on the government website the progress and lack of it so that even the public can see what is it that is happening. We don't hide the truth, including the obstacles that still stand in the way. It is also very clear that members of the opposition parties don't even understand Operation Pakisa. We try to explain to you, which I want to do it again, that this is part of the tools that we have to implement the NDP with the common purpose of all government, which increases collaboration, which increases collective working together of all government departments. That is why we are increasingly finding that departments no longer work in silos. Over and above that, that has also increased collaboration with partners in business, in labor, in civil society, even academic institutions. Good results have been shown with this working together in the oceans economy, in the Ideal Clinic, in ICT, on education. Those who say planning must just be done merely at line function departments, they don't understand and recognize the centrality of planning in the whole of government so that we can be able to have a coherent plan that is there, the NDP, that has to be continuously being monitored by government. States SA is part and parcel of all these initiatives to ensure that we are having evidence-based monitoring of all data that we have in front of us. We cannot be able to achieve our goals of the NDP if there is no buy-in from all of civil society. That's why we talk about active citizenry. So, House Chair and honorable members, we want to advise those members of the opposition parties that they must do their job as public representatives of our people. They must read their documents, because the success of our fight against poverty, unemployment, and inequality can only be attained if we work together. So I once again propose that we support this budget vote 8 of DPME. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I'd like to remind you that the debate on the Office of the Chief Justice and Judicial Administration budget vote will take place 10 minutes after this sitting rises in the National Assembly chamber, and the debate on Home Affairs budget vote will take place in the old Assembly chamber. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise.